Hey everybody, welcome back to Shoe and Show. Thanks for joining us for this week's episode. One of the hottest topics the footwear industry faces today is not just tariffs. There's a lot of other things that are also happening we have to keep our eyes on. So we can't just have blinders on, tariff blinders or tariff tunnel vision in some ways, if you want to say that. But there's another big T out there, and that is traceability. And that is an issue that has obviously been a topic of conversation for many, many years. People who have worked on traceability in the past did it for operational excellence. Today, we have a lot of legal regulations stacking on top of that. And so to kind of help understand how to be excellent in the traceability space, as well as the regulatory environment and the shifts that are changing, I'm happy to have one of our partners, TrusTrace, come on today. So I've got Shameek Ghosh, who is a CEO and a co-founder of TrusTrace. Shameek, I don't think you've been on the show before, so welcome.
Thank you, Andy. Good to be here.
Yeah, great. So you guys, I want to know a little bit about TrusTrace in case people don't know. But when did you guys start TrusTrace? Like, obviously, we have all these new rules and regulations, but you guys, I
Yeah,
think, started this well before kind of this regulatory onslaught.
that's right. So we are four co-founders, and all of us come from India, but two of the founders are based in Sweden, and the other two founders are based in India. And we used to work together for a large IT services company there. And around 2017, we felt that I think the industry needs a digital platform to get full understanding of the supply chain, because we were seeing that though many claims are being made by the Western companies, Western fashion and the footwear companies, but when it goes to the supply chain or the supplier side or the manufacturing side of it, many of these claims were not getting reflected in their day-to-day operations, right? So we could see that when in Sweden there's so many sustainable brands, and their core philosophy is that, hey, we do not want to do any harm to the environment or to the society, part of it, but
Mm.
because of the long chain and very distant relationship that they have with the manufacturers, specifically in India, we could see that there's a lot of water pollution, air pollution, detrimental effects to the society, forced labor, these kind of things which keep on emerging off and on kind of thing. So we felt that we could actually solve this problem by bringing our competencies in digital first approaches. With that concept, it was a hobby project we started in 2017 with four
Okay.
of us there. We were well supported by the lot of Scandinavian brands to help us to know how do they typically do it in process wise, in terms of operations setup that they were doing there. And with this, we started building the platform, working with them and along with the suppliers in Asia. So Vietnam, India, China, and all the various key locations where they have their supply chain. That is how we started in 2017. Yes, you're right. During that time, the goal was not so much of regulation and compliance was not such a big thing. There, it was predominantly driven through the CSO offices of most of these companies, and typically in these initiatives, because they were Scandinavian brands, much more sustainability first people, so the CEOs and the many times the founders were also involved in it. So I'm talking about companies such as Houdini, Philippa K, Fjallraven, so which is a lot more north star of the sustainability change that they were bringing. And then obviously the larger companies started joining this change, with companies such as Adidas and many more footwear and outdoor companies there.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about how the platform operates and how it
Yes.
works, right? Let's say I'm a company who, in typical parlance, we have is like four tiers, right? We start with tier one, tier two, tier three, tier four. Tier four, typically the farmers or the miners for the materials, the raw materials that we have. How do I engage with TrustTrace to help map out what those tiers are and where those suppliers are? Because I think that's the challenge is we know typically tier one, right? We know we're getting the final product from.
Yeah.
We don't always know even below that. So you look at like three tiers of darkness or blind spots that we have. How do you guys help solve and help us find who those suppliers are?
Yeah. So I think we we have got like four foundational modules, and I think these typically reflect the journey of a brand also to how to do this, how to go about it. The first is what you call supply chain mapping, which is predominantly a discovery process. You typically are trying to use the platform to say that, okay, I know my tier one, asking the tier one, can you expose me and put in the names of the various tier 2 suppliers, like who is providing you the fabric, who is providing you the sole, who is providing you the maybe different components for your shoes, into that. So tier 2 they expose, and typically in the process you also start at least with the nominated tier 2 suppliers. You say that, can you also share with us the tier 3, and yeah, in some cases the tier 4 suppliers also there. You have to understand this takes some amount of time and effort and discipline there, right? Also you have to incentivize and work with the brand. So typically this process works together with a strategic process that a procurement or a production team will be typically running, and we become the digital twin aspect of that initiative there. So that is the first foundational module, which is supply chain mapping there, where you have built relationships that you have within your the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 suppliers there, kind of thing. It already becomes a very complex web there. The second part is now you want to understand deep information about the what is happening in a particular facility. This is what I call supplier relationship management, much more granular information about what are the different environmental, social, ethical, material based data. So we collect different audits, different assessment certificates, and we bring all of them together in one place. So you have a single version of truth, not multiple different claims being made, and proper paper trail is maintained in the platform there. So this is called the SRM side of it. Then the third approach is what you call, you start with a product backward traceability, right? Because you are just starting the journey, where in this process what you say, you ask the tier 1, before you ship a product, can you please ensure you collect all the evidences, upload in the TrusTrace platform using artificial intelligence and AI technologies and OCR technologies. We are able to say, okay, in this claims that you are making, there are red flags in the following places, there are information gaps in the following places, can you please fill in the information? So it is some amount of uh, to and fro information that happens with the tier 1 supplier, who on behalf of the full supply chain uploads all the evidences there, right? And this is predominantly to ensure that when you ship a product, you're complying to various requirements that is needed from the sustainability or the trade angle there. The much more detailed traceability is the fiber forward or the raw material forward traceability. And there what we happen is we onboard up till tier 4, and the tier 4 then uploads any information that they have about inbound material flow, work in progress, wastage, plus the outbound. So the complete chain of custody gets built by in that whole process there. So typically, if you are a shoe company, you are repeating a lot of same products year on year. You will typically push all those products towards the fourth module, which is the real time trace. And if you are a seasonal product, you have got maybe 1 season, 2 season, you will typically do it with a product backward approach. So to
Mm.
these foundational modules, then you will have a sustainability goal. Is decarbonization your goal? Is complying to UFLPA regulation a goal for you, or EUDR is a goal for you there? Then we have got something what we call special modules on top of these four foundational modules, through which you are able to get the right requirements, because now for EUDR you need some specific information on top of these four modules, is what we then help them to comply to more than 30 different kind of regulations which are applicable globally there. And now, of course, with this big tariff discussion, this foundational module also helps them to understand what is their exposure to different countries, different product supply chains, etc. There. So that's how the platform
Yeah,
works.
so it's interesting because you're attacking different aspects with different modules and different ways of getting the
Yes.
data into the system. Um, the The third one that you mentioned about how it alerts you to it red flags your problems, your gaps that you have. That seems to be very applicable now to the regulatory environment with the Forced Labor Prevention Act, but also to your point to the EU, where they're looking much more in terms of traceability, also in terms of deforestation as well.
Yes.
Issues around that, right? So not just forced labor, but also like environmental impact and not sourcing from areas that have, for instance, like in Brazil, where they're chopping down the rainforest, right? And so maybe speak a little bit about that from what you're hearing from the brands around their concerns and how you're helping pop up those red flags and fill those gaps.
Yeah. So I think, as you said, the major problem, most of the sourcing, production, sustainability these teams are dealing with is lack of good quality data. So that is the fundamental problem we are helping them to solve. Earlier, it has been plagued with a lot of opacity about information. They really do not know what is happening at which tier, under that tier, what is happening at different facilities within the same suppliers, etc. So we are able to bring up all this information for them too, so that they know confidently what is happening in the supply chain there. And also they can now deal with the material provenance also, because as you know, in this transformation towards much more sustainable practices, you also want to ensure, or maybe compliance activities, you have to ensure that you know that there is no exposure to materials which has got significant implication on your claims that you will be making later on there. So this is what is driving many of these companies to use the platform in a certain way there. And and as you rightly mentioned, so there is EU deforestation law, right? Then you have got also the FLPA regulation in US, but there are various different FLPA regulation. Fundamentally, there are what they're looking for is at a bill of material level, you know the country of origin, you know the country of manufacturing, or place of origin and place of manufacturing, plus you're also having all the evidences to prove that you have done a proper chain of custody information at a broad level. So that fundamental concept we are bringing through the foundational modules, and then some additional information that they need, be it a deforestation law where you need to know that what are the geo coordinates of the farm from which the production is happening. So through that module, we ask them that over and above whatever you're collecting, I also want you to share the geo locations. In case of forced labor prevention, you have to ensure that, hey, can you please tell me, because I'm more concerned about the cotton as a commodity, please tell me the information about cotton there. So that is how we then add multiple layers to that foundational data,
Right.
and this can be used much more effectively, because you have to understand the cost of collecting that base foundational data is high, but as you start applying to multiple different regulation using that core data, the margin, the gains are significant for you there.
I think what you pointed on there on the geolocation, um, when I learned about that last year on the EU requiring like cocoa bean farms are particularly subjected to this in the European Union. Um, but you have to map out the coordinates of your farm around. There's no way that you can manage this in Excel. There's no way,
uh,
like you're getting to the point where the data is so intense that the traditional mechanisms that we've had to manage our data system just don't apply anymore. And I think what's interesting, what you guys have done is to integrate also with other partners like Centric and PLM system, so
yeah.
that information flows correctly to solve the problems we're looking for back and forth. But I
Yes.
just think it's so complex now. We're living in such a complex data world that it just, my point is like this idea that we can keep doing business as usual and not use something like a trust trace is a little bit naive.
Sandy, you bring up a very critical. So if you look at it, most of the brands and companies, they have been very focused on the consumer side of it. They know so much granular information about, okay, this is the demography in this particular geography. This is how I want to build up my store. This is how I want to engage with them online. This are the various means. But supply chain, which is also the real core part of their business, I think they have been living in a lot of the data is not very easily available, and they
Yeah.
have not put in a lot of investments to get that data there, right? It is and earlier, when they had their own factories, they had access to such good quality data, but when they have outsourced, they have not maintained the same amount of due diligence in collecting that data there. I think there's a wealth of efficiency gains that they can make, not only from the risk compliance part of it, but overall impact, overall positioning of their industry, but also operational efficiency, right? We saw during the COVID time in itself that people, because there were supply chains which were going which were shutting down, and you had to find out alternate supply chains. People who had this quality of data were able to do switch over and switch very very well, and they brought significant amount of financial and operational efficiency through that whole mechanism. We saw that. And you bring up a very critical point that people have said, okay, I have now implemented PLM, maybe I should get this data. But what you are missing out is what is the risk, compliance, and impact information that you have at a product level there, right? Which covers data from PLM, from the ERP system, but also from various third party data sources. For example, WWF for biodiversity. You also have got OECD information related to carbon footprint calculation, GHG. So much of third party data you have to bring in. So at TrusTrace, what we are doing is, of course, we work with specific IT information systems such as PLM, ERP of the brands. We also bring industry data sources related to or environmental, social, ethical aspects of it. And then we are also integrating with various different standard bodies like audits, assessments, and all, so that all that information comes in one place. So you, at any point in time, a sustainability analyst or a production controller or a business controller can just go in and say that, hey, I want to know what are the various, at a product level, what are the various certification audits, plus the different exposures I have there. And now, as you look at it, in the current climate where trade and tariffs have become such a critical information, you can easily use this information now to say that, okay, now I really want to know what my deep tier information is, and how should I navigate towards a particular market. Maybe in European Union, I should source this particular product from this geography rather than from the other geography to be much more efficient and all that. So because now this, all this information is percolating and coming to your product costing, right? So it is
Hmm.
no more a game of sustainability or risk and compliance, but basic economics of your business also there.
Yeah, because I think so many people see this as a cost instead of a return on investment for their operations. And at this point, we've got to find every way to look at cost issues,
Yes.
alternatives, everything in this tariff environment that we have. Um, as we kind of wrap up this conversation, what makes a brand, one brand, more successful than another brand? And I tee that up because I know you've written some articles about how important it is for leadership to be involved in
Yes.
traceability and decision making. So is that the critical juncture to where one brand will succeed in this space and get that huge ROI we just talked about, like operational excellence versus another?
Yes. Yeah, I think it is nowhere different from running any other transformation program there. I think the first part is the strategic commitment that the board as well as the CEO makes to this, right? Because this, until and unless it comes from the top, it is very, very difficult for people to bring in a significant amount of change, because you're talking about engaging with your suppliers and telling them that I am doing this, because you're now asking the suppliers to give maybe 10 times or 100 times more data compared to what they're used to. So you need to have ensure that the CEO goes and tells that why you are doing it, because if you don't say the why part of it, most of the suppliers will not get it. It also means, for example, when we run these kind of programs, we typically see that the brand would have made a significant commitment that, like for Adidas, made that by 2025 90% of my products should become sustainable, right? So then that is coming from a CEO's strategy there, and then it gets reflected in the organization. So strategic commitment, I would say, is the first one. Second one is putting the right talent to do this, because it is a transformation program. You have to understand that you do not know what you don't know also there.
Right.
So typically you have to put the right people, and they can come from various backgrounds. They can come from compliance background, they can come from production background, they can come from supplier relationship background. So you have to really form a very good core team to deliver on this promise there. And the third one is the preparedness. So that is where we have these playbooks that we have launched. We have authored, working with the best people in this business who have done it. Because what we have now over the last 10 years is that we have delivered more than 25 global scale traceability programs. So there's a wealth of knowledge that we have accumulated, but more importantly, we have been in this journey of discovering what the problems are and how did we practically solve with these brands. So we have brought all that data into this playbooks, which by which they can really they don't need to go through the complete learning curve. We shorten the learning curve using this. So yeah, strategic commitment, getting the right talent and giving them the right tools for that, and finally the preparedness to roll it out is super important, I would say there. And it is no way different from any other
Yeah.
change management or a transformation program that you will have.
Yeah. You missed one. The fourth one, finding the right partner, TrustTrace. So if they go to TrustTrace, Google TrustTrace, you can learn more about them.
I would say
TrustTrace,
preparedness means also that you choose the right partner, data
that's
partner
right.
also.
Choose the right partner. I know that TrustTrace is sponsoring several FDRA events this year. We appreciate the support and the knowledge that you guys will bring to those events to help engage folks and see things that are happening. Because I think the traceability journey will continue to evolve. It'll get tougher as we keep going along this kind of path. But we don't have to be afraid of that. Like if we lean into it and realize like it is an opportunity to identify in our supply chain the best partners, find maybe better partners than we have now, more local,
Yep.
more sustainable, et cetera. And so we could end up adding more value to our product while reducing costs in our supply chain. So there's a lot of opportunity in this space. So I appreciate you coming on today and sharing a little bit about what you guys are doing, and hopefully people who haven't, really fully jumped into the journey, there's not really an option now. We have to do this. Even with California transparency laws that are coming into place,
Yeah.
just to say where these things are. There's no measure saying you have to hit these targets, but they're just saying we want more understanding that who your suppliers are that you're getting your product from, and so I think that will keep coming. Correct?
Yeah. I think we have to embrace the change, and I think it's a change for good. Of course, it hurts in the short run, but I think it will significantly make us much stronger as an industry to see that okay, we have the right quality of data to navigate to these different business challenges and the larger challenges that we are facing there. And the good news is that I think now that we have done this at 25 times with larger brands, we have got the learning cycle and also the rollout cycle is reducing significantly. A program when we in 2019 which would take 1 year, now we are able to roll it out in a matter of 4 weeks there. So I think that is what we have been able to see. We are onboarding. When we did our first onboarding of suppliers, we onboarded 150 suppliers and it took us 4 months to onboard them. In the last case, we actually onboarded 1,500 suppliers in a matter of 3 weeks there.
Wow.
So, and I think also we see that there's the eagerness from both the sides, from the supplier side as well as from the larger ecosystem, that hey, we want to participate in it, right? Because earlier people used to think that why are you asking for this data? Now people, they see that suppliers who share this data have a competitive advantage when they are going and seeking business from these brands. So I think there's
Right.
a significant mindset change that has happened at the supplier communities also.
Wow, that's a great point. Something to think about as well. Folks, again, Shameek, thank you for coming on today. Talk to us a little bit. Trust Trace. Again, they'll be at FPRA events. You can go learn more about Trust Trace online. See some of the articles that they've written and some of the playbooks they've launched out there. But it is interesting to wrap it up that in the past people get so nervy about platforms, about how long it takes to implement. But you're saying basically in a month you can start to see real results on the TrusTrace platform, and I think that's pretty remarkable to have something that can evolve that quickly. So kudos to you guys for that. Folks, shoeandshow.com is our website with our full catalog of all our shows. Go back and listen. Even things, I always say this, if you're a loyal listener, I always say this, but even going back 4 or 5 years into the catalog, you can still learn really important things. We try to keep our conversations evergreen as possible, but in today's world, traceability, I think, is just as paramount as the kind of tariff fight that we're immersing ourselves in now, because again of the ballooning regulations that they have. And so keep close to FDRA. We'll keep updating you on developments as they occur in the regulatory space. But again, to Shameek's point, choose the right partners. It matters to your operations. So Shameek, again, thanks for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Really a pleasure. Thanks a lot, Andy.
All right, until next time, Shoe-In is out.
Shoe-In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.